is the Town of Corte Madera Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, October 14th, 2025. Meeting will come to order. Please do the roll call.
Sure. Commissioner Bandel, Commissioner Rogers, Commissioner Beshoyer.
Here.
And Vice Chair Kenny.
Here.
And just to note that our chair, Peter Chase, has recused himself tonight due to proximity to the applicant.
Thank you. Salute to the flag. Pledge allegiance. Now is the time for public comment from anybody who wants to speak on something that's not on the agenda for tonight. Is there anybody in the audience? And Claire, is anybody online?
No hands are raised online.
Okay. We have no consent items and no continued hearings, so we're going to move on to the new hearing. The new hearing is for 478 Montecito Avenue, Design Review Application PL 25-0032 for a 610 square foot second story addition and a 204 square foot first story addition, and variance application PL 25-0033 to change the first story's flat roof to a pitched roof and reconstruct the existing attached carport as a fully enclosed garage at 478 Montecito Avenue. I think we're ready for the staff report.
Thank you, commissioners. As Dan said, we are conducting a public hearing for a design review application for a second story addition, as well as a variance application for encroachment into setbacks at 478 Montecito. The project site is located on the east side of Montecito Avenue, close to the end of the Montecito cul-de-sac, as shown on this vicinity map. Adjacent to the project site to the north and south are single-family residences. Additional single-family residences are located west of the project site across Montecito Avenue, as well as east of the project site downhill on Stetson Avenue. The site is irregularly shaped along the rear property line, where the topography of the lot slopes down to the east. The lot measures 9,685 square feet in area, where the minimum lot size in the zone is 20,000 square feet. The project site is zoned R1A low density residential, the same as the other residences close to the end of Montecito Avenue. The beginning of Montecito Avenue is zoned R1 medium density residential. The existing lot is developed with a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 1,238 square foot single-story residence with an attached 309 square foot carport. The existing residence is legal nonconforming with respect to side yard and front yard setbacks, and I'll discuss that in greater detail later in my presentation. This slide is showing the existing, proposed, and required development standards applicable to this project, which includes reconstruction of the existing attached carport as a fully enclosed garage. And given the fact that the carport is proposed to be reconstructed as a garage in the required front and north side setbacks, a variance is required for this aspect of the project. The existing home has a flat roof, and with this project, the applicant proposes to remove the roof in order to accommodate the second story addition and to reconfigure the first story roof with a pitched design that would match the new second story. And so a variance is also required for this aspect of the project. The edge of the roof essentially is within the north side setback. Both the first story addition and the new second story comply with all required setbacks. The existing first floor of the home will be remodeled and reconfigured. This slide is showing the proposed first floor plan. The existing carport is included at the northwest corner of the home, where I've labeled it garage, and is proposed to be reconstructed in its present location as a one-car garage. Pursuant to the zoning ordinance, the covered area of a carport counts as floor area, the same as an enclosed garage does, and therefore the creation of the garage does not add floor area to the site. The 204 square foot addition is proposed at the rear of the residence and will create a formal dining area. The proposed project will also add a new 37 square foot front entry porch to the west elevation. The new ridge of the first story runs east-west at the center of the building, and this will allow the ceiling of the family room and the kitchen and the new dining room to be vaulted. This is showing the proposed second floor plan. The proposed second story addition is positioned at the southwest corner of the home with the main ridge running east-west like the lower story ridge. The proposed second floor is 610 square feet and includes 2 bedrooms, a playroom, and a bathroom. The existing west elevation faces the front of the home, meaning it faces Montecito Avenue, and includes the attached carport and 1 bedroom window. The proposed second story is stepped back from the existing first story wall plane on 3 sides. So on the front side, it's set back 28 feet, 1 inch from the west property line, where a minimum setback of 25 feet is required. The proposed second story addition will have a maximum height of 23 feet, 2 inches. Maximum allowed height is 30 feet. The new second story includes 2 windows on the street facing elevation, which is a bedroom window and a bathroom window. The existing front entry to the home is located inside of the carport. So the applicant with this project proposes to construct a new entry porch on the west elevation. The entry porch is set back 20 feet, 1 inch from the west property line. The required setback for a porch is only 19 feet, meaning that a front entry porch can extend 6 feet into the required front yard setback, and it does comply with that regulation. The new attached garage is obviously visible on the west elevation, where it will occupy the same footprint as the carport. Like the carport, the garage will be set back 23 feet, 1 inch from the front property line, where 25 feet is required. It'll be set back 4 feet, 6 inches from the north side property line, where 10 feet is required, and that's the same as the existing carport. Additionally, with this project, you can see on the west elevation, the new pitch on the lower story that will accommodate its change to match the pitch of the proposed second story. The south elevation of the home faces the rear yard and the neighboring properties' rear yards. The south elevation of the home faces the side yard and the neighboring property at 480 Montecito Avenue, just to the south. The first story dining room will extend the first floor of the home east towards the rear property line. The dining room addition, shown on the right edge of the screen here, is approximately 35 feet from the south property line, where 10 feet is required. The new ridge of the dining room is the same as the new ridge for the lower story and is a maximum height of 15 feet, 10 inches at the highest point. The new dining room south elevation includes clear story windows over a new sliding door that will provide access to the yard. There are 3 first floor windows proposed on the south elevation, which is the primary bedroom, the bathroom, and the kitchen. The new second story will extend the existing wall plane vertically on this elevation, and it does not step back from the first floor wall plane on this side. The second story addition includes 2 dormers. The highest point of the dormers is 20 feet, 4 inches. Both the dormers include large windows. The windows each measure 7.5 feet wide by 4 feet high. The second story is set back 15 feet, 11 inches from the south property line. At 10 feet is required. Moving on to this is the east elevation facing the rear yard and the rear yard of properties downhill on Stetson. The change to the lower story roof line is clearly seen on the east elevation. And as I talked about previously, the peak of the gable at the lower story and the highest point of the dining room is 15 feet, 10 inches in height. There's new sliding glass doors to be installed on this elevation of the lower story as well, again, providing access to the yard from the remodeled home. 4 windows of varying size are proposed on the east elevation. There's 2 at the lower level and 2 at the upper level. And with the dining room addition to the first story, the setback from the home to the rear property line is 105 feet 2 inches. 35 feet is required. The north elevation of the home faces the side yard and the neighboring property at 476 Montecito. The second story addition is stepped back from the wall plane of the first story on the north elevation. The second story is proposed to be set back 10 feet 2 inches to the north property line, where 10 feet is required. 1 window on the upper story is proposed. Its window is located at the playroom. The window is 5 feet wide by 4 feet high with a sill height of 33 inches. 2 windows are proposed at the first story on the north elevation. 1 window is in the garage and the other window is in the existing living room. There's also a door to the garage proposed, as well as a door to a mechanical / storage area on the north elevation. The first story dining room is closest to the north side property line. It's going to be set back 10 feet 2 inches where 10 feet is required. It has a shed roof with the lower part of the shed roof closest to the north property line and the high point of the shed roof at the interior of the lot. The dining room addition, as you can see, does not include any windows on the north elevation. This slide is showing a project rendering. The rendering shows the second story addition, as well as the new garage and the new front porch. The applicant also proposes a new 6-foot fence in the front yard with an entry gate, as well as new pavers for the driveway and front walkway. The existing home's exterior finish would be replaced with new board and batten siding for the second story and the main form of the first story, painted in a medium gray. The home would also use concrete lap siding horizontally for the lower water table feature of the first story, and this also is in medium gray. It uses fiberglass windows and doors in a dark gray and black asphalt shingles. There should be a materials board on the dais for you, and then the cover sheet, the first sheet of the plans is A0, and that shows the colors and materials as well. This slide is showing a map of the neighboring residences that were contacted by the applicant. Neighborhood outreach was conducted prior to application submittal and following installation of story poles. The applicant met with several of the neighbors as part of this process and provided a summary of their outreach and communications with the neighbors, and that's included as attachment 3 of your staff report. Just wanted to highlight that written public comments were received from the owner of 476 Montecito, which is the home just to the north of the project site. Written public comments were received from 481 Montecito, which is directly across the street. And those are attachment 5 to your staff report. After packet publication, the owner of 472 Montecito submitted written public comment. And this letter was provided to the commission, posted to the website, and hard copies are available at the back of the room. And as noted in the staff report, 482 Montecito, which is 2 doors to the south of the project site, contacted staff and the applicant to discuss the project, but did not submit written public comment and did not ask staff to come view story poles. The owners of 476 and 482 Montecito have made minor requests related to the sill height of the second story window on the north elevation, and as well as to the depth of the eave that's on the upper story on the east elevation. This is discussed on page 7 of the staff report. And the commission, if they find it necessary to affirm design review findings, the commission could condition these modifications or other modifications and potentially include them as part of a motion to approve. You can let me know if you have any further questions related to that. A variance, just to move on to the variance request. Variance is being requested for this project. It includes a front yard and north side yard setback variance for construction of the garage and the footprint of the carport. And it includes a north side yard setback variance to make a change to the existing flat roof of the first story and give it a 412 pitch to match the new second story. The existing home was built in 1953, which is prior to the town's adoption of a 1958 zoning ordinance that contains setback regulations. So that means that these encroachments are an legal non-conforming condition. This is showing a partial site plan just to illustrate the encroachments I just talked about. The existing structure is 4 foot 6 inches from the north side property line and 10 feet is required. It's also 23 feet 1 inch from the front property line where 25 feet is required. The hatched area in red is showing what's within the required front and side yard setback. The required setbacks are the dashed blue line. And then I've drawn a yellow box and a green box. That's the second story addition and the first story addition, which both of those meet required setbacks. The garage encroachment into the required setback area is apparent when looking at the site plan, but the change to the roof pitch is a little more difficult to see. So on this slide, I'm showing the small area of the first story roof, which would be changed from flat to pitched in the red shade. The red line is the 10-foot required setback. Primarily, variance findings require that one can affirm that there is a unique condition or a special circumstance that applies to the lot that in which strict application of the zoning ordinance results in difficulty in developing the site. In Chapter 1828, variances of the zoning ordinance clearly states that the variance procedure is intended to resolve practical difficulties or unnecessary physical hardships, which may result from size, shape, or dimensions of a site or the location of existing structures, and also adds that geographic or topographic uniqueness could also provide justification for a variance. And the unique conditions that are applicable to this site are the location of the existing structure on the lot and the fact that the lot is significantly substandard in size. You can find all analysis of variance findings. Those are beginning on page 8 of the draft resolution attached to your staff report. Let's see. So again, back to the partial site plan. As I said before, the location of the existing structure was lawfully established, partially within the required front and north side setbacks. This is a unique circumstance which limits the options available for construction of any project on the site that would not require demolition of the existing structure to correct the nonconformance. In other words, it's possible for the applicant to comply with setback standards if they demolish the existing structure and relocate it 5 feet to the south and 2 feet to the east. This represents an unnecessary physical hardship. It's not feasible to construct the garage on the south side of the existing residence, since there's only 15 feet 4 inches of space on the south side. Taking into consideration there's a 10-foot setback, that would leave 5 feet 4 inches for a garage to be constructed on the south side of the building. Similarly, due to the steepness of the lot on the south side, in order to place a garage behind the residence, there would be excessive grading necessary at the side property line to provide the width necessary for a vehicle to traverse through the side yard to a garage located behind the house. And lastly, if the applicant was required to reduce the size of the building to meet front and side setback requirements, they would be removing about half of the garage and the room that's located behind it. And removing half of a parking space would eliminate it, which isn't permitted and would require parking variance approval. And the second characteristic I wanted to talk about is that the lot is significantly undersized, which contributes to the practical difficulty of building a modest code compliant home on this lot. The project site is zoned R1A, where a minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet. The project site is 9,685 square feet, which is only 48% of the required minimum lot size. And staff compared the size of the subject lot to the 22 other lots on Montecito Avenue that are similarly zoned, and lot sizes range from 8,900 square feet to over 84,000 square feet. The project site is the second smallest lot, and is only one of two that are less than 10,000 square feet. And many of the lots on Montecito Avenue are undersized, but only two, including the project site, are significantly undersized. And when you combine that with the location of the existing structure on the site, there are not feasible options for construction of the garage without encroachment into setback areas. Granting of the variance would not be a grant of special privilege. Of the 31 homes on Montecito Avenue, excluding the project site, 27 of them, or 87%, have the privilege of providing and maintaining secure covered parking in the form of a 1 or 2 car garage. Strict application of the zoning ordinance would deprive the applicant of the privilege of maintaining their lawfully established covered parking or improving it into secure covered parking as a garage. And this map I've shown here, the blue dots are the folks that have a garage. And there's 27 total. Of those that are zoned R1A, there's 22 total. And there are three, only three that have carport. And I wanted to touch on one condition of approval that we added to this project. This is on page 12 of the resolution. It's condition of approval number 4. And due to the extent of renovation that's proposed to the existing structure, we included this condition of approval that requires that any exterior walls located within the setback area must be retained if they're identified as existing to remain on the approved design review plans. If the applicant proposes to remove these areas at the time of building permit application or during construction, a permit amendment would be required. And in the future, staff would add this condition of approval to similar projects that include a variance approval for maintenance of portions of a non-conforming structure going forward. And lastly, staff is recommending approval of the design review and variance applications. I'm available to answer any questions that you have. The applicant team here would like to speak to you at the appropriate time and is available to answer questions that you have for the applicant as well. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Tracy, for a very thorough staff report. Questions for staff? You want to start with Margaret? Andrew?
I have a question regarding demo in Corte Madera. If an existing wall is rebuilt and it's
Go ahead, put your mic. So tiny button, it's easy to forget.
sorry about that. In Corte Madera, if an existing wall has to be removed for structural reasons and rebuilt and it's placed in the exact same location, is it still considered removal of a wall as far as any demolition calculations go?
We don't define demolition, and neither does the building code. If
Okay.
a wall is removed, it's been removed.
Okay.
They would need to support it and leave it in place. There are, and we added flexibility to that condition, allowing them to remove some additional portions of the wall if necessary. If they discover rot, for instance, and the wall's in a setback area, they could remove an additional 10% of that wall before they're in the territory of a permit amendment. And the intent is that if the non-conforming portions are removed, that we have an opportunity to restore them in conformance with setback regulations. We do have a definition of maintenance in our zoning ordinance related to our non-conforming chapter. And it does specifically allow structural support of roof and foundation. So they could add to the foundation and add to the wall, but removing it if it's deleted, essentially. Is it there? Then it's okay. If it's not there, then permit amendment. Does that make sense?
It does. It just creates some logistical challenges. Like, obviously, these plans haven't yet gone to structural engineering. And if you're taking a carport and making it into a garage, the perimeter foundation is likely going to change. So the difficulty of leaving a wall in place when you're removing the foundation and replacing it beneath it is tricky.
the carport construction, the garage construction takes into account total removal of the carport and replacement with the garage
Oh, okay,
as
okay.
part of their variance application.
Oh, I
There's
see.
one wall on, I think it's sheet A2, at their the existing room behind the garage that they've identified as to remain.
Okay,
And that's one wall in particular that we're concerned with. There's other walls, exterior walls that are in the buildable area of the lot that there's additional flexibility for them there because they're not in a setback. They meet our regulations.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. Thank you.
Valerie.
Yeah, I have a few. Do you mind so I'm gonna actually attack on to what Andrew has just mentioned. If we are not requiring a structural report for our approvals here specifically, how does the town can help us to approve the project considering and the structural feasibility of the project, considering that we're adding a second story there and we do not have the report that stating that we actually can do that on existing foundation.
We process the applications of what people apply for. We have discussed that with the applicant. What is going to be required to accomplish the second story addition. They do have structural on their team that they've discussed this with, and I'll let them elaborate on that. We have a checklist of what's required for applicants to determine completeness. And we've talked with Anne, who's not here today, but we discussed with her whether we can require structural plans as part of design review. And we can't require what's not on our checklist. And there's opportunity to revisit what's on our checklist, I think internally. But when people have a level of uncertainty about whether their application will be approved, it's a challenge for us to ask for expensive structural drawings for something that might need to then be revised or changed again or come before the commission at a continued hearing.
I see. My concern is because we have a couple of the buildings in Corte Madera where we would grant the application and then once they go through the demo, they realize that structure cannot support and it just would become the whole ordeal, right? So I'm trying to think of how we could today eliminate that possibility by, I mean, perhaps not requiring the applicant investing into these structural plans without knowing whether or not the project going to be approved, but perhaps to lay the condition of approval or, kind of what are options here today?
That's what we're trying to do with that condition of approval,
Okay.
number 4. And if there, for instance, if we have seen a couple of times in the fairly recent past where people need to demolish the whole building. And they come to us and say that we need to demolish the whole building. And in those instances, there was no setback variance granted, no variance of any kind. And in this case, what we're trying to do with that condition of approval is ensure that if this applicant needs to demolish the building, that they either need to apply for a permit amendment and obtain variance approval to put it back at its existing footprint, or more likely is we would say you need to move the building over 5 feet and meet our north side setback, front setback requirements. And that's what that condition of approval is trying to do, is ensure that if the applicant is going to demolish the areas within the setback, that we require them to go through a permit amendment process.
Then the site potentially would be left demolished for a period of the time while the applicant revisiting the project. Is that?
I would imagine I think it would be unlikely for the person to demolish it and stop the process then. I think what would happen, and what has happened in the past, is people contact us when they're prepared to apply for building permit and say, I need to demolish the building. So those are the most recent examples that I can think of.
Okay.
This is a condition of approval we'd have to be very explicit with and require the contractor to acknowledge. Every contractor and every property owner acknowledges all of our conditions of approval, and they sign a document stating that I've read it and I will abide by them all. But I think we'd want to be explicit on this particular condition of approval, have it called out on the plan so that a contractor does not accidentally demolish the wall that we're asking them to keep. And even in that case, that's messy, right? But yeah, they would have to stop and apply for a permit amendment.
I'll also just add that this really illuminated an issue in our code that we don't have this defined because there have been other situations where you need a threshold. So it's understood and it's documented and we don't have to condition things for each design review application. So feel free to work with that condition if you don't think it strikes the right balance, but we will identify this for future code updates as well, that we really need to have something in a legal nonconforming ordinance or somewhere that really delineates when we consider demolition, what's the definition of demolition, and what's the threshold when you have something that doesn't conform and they have to build something that is conforming.
Okay, thank you. All right, my other one is just to kind of, I mean, not the same question, but the similar to the geotechnical plan. Since again, this one has not been included, I just want to make sure that the proposed project addresses all of the like slope stability and erosion and everything in the construction, because we haven't seen any drainage plans yet. This
I
particular.
think there is a drainage plan.
Oh, is there?
I think so, but at any rate, this is all plan checked through the building code and public works and engineering. And they need to comply with all of our drainage regulations, and erosion control regulations, and that's done through the building permit process. And I think drainage plan is, sorry, I don't have my glasses. C1. Thank you.
Right, I was looking at
Which is just after, yeah, the existing landscape plan, so towards the back of the plan set. And the applicant can talk about drainage and how they're going to handle that. But basically, Public Works is looking at how is it collected, how is it conveyed, and
Yeah,
to where?
I'll have some questions for the applicant for that
Okay.
one. And then other question for staff, just very generic, because I've encountered that a lot on my projects. If how do we ensure, like if we approve the materials and the look of the building, how do we ensure that these proposed materials actually are going to be installed? Let's say down the line, the materials are not available, or the project was over budgeted and the substitutions need to be made. How do we ensure that whatever we're approving is similar or alike?
through the permit amendment process. And it's commonplace for people to change lighting fixtures or windows just based on what's available. Paint color maybe would slightly change. If a change is significant enough, we would bring it back to the planning commission. But generally speaking, material changes tend to be an administrative change because this is what they like and are trying to accomplish. And typically are pretty minor.
Okay,
See a change there. Yeah.
thank you. I have no more questions.
I have a few questions. One is a question of clarification about the conversation you had with the I think it's the house that's two houses to the south relative to
Yep. I think that's 482. Yep.
where they had asked that I was a little confused because they talk about the ridge line and then they talk about the eaves being reduced. And I don't know if they meant really the ridge line. It's on page 7.
Yeah, they stated that the eave, or my conversation with them was that the eastern eave extends 1 foot 8 inches from the wall on the east elevation. And they would like to see that eave reduced to somewhere between 4 and 6 inches. And I do believe that person is here tonight to speak. So you'll hear from him directly on what he intended for me to hear.
So it's not the height of the ridge line.
I don't think so, but I'd like him to speak for himself if I'm incorrect. That is my understanding based on our conversation with that gentleman and with the applicant.
And then could you comment on the frequency for variances when you have a house that's a non-conforming use? Is, given when this was built in the early 50s, is that similar, many houses in this situation? And how often are these variances granted?
We do see it relatively frequently. The last one I can think of that the commission heard was up on Redwood. And it was in it was in both side yards and the front yard. And they're seeking to increase the height of the building. And that was granted. I'd say it's relatively common for the older neighborhoods. It is not common for if they were to, for instance, ask for the dining room to be set back 4'6". That would not be common because that's new construction or new wing of the building. And we would ask them to meet setback requirements for the dining room, just as they have for this application.
Okay. The last question is, do we have criteria for, under design review, granting approval for a 6-foot fence in a front yard setback?
We do have criteria. It can't be at an intersection, so it couldn't be at a corner lot. We ask that applicants create in consistency with the general plan. The general plan likes houses that are open to the street. And so enclosing the entire front yard would not be viewed as a positive addition to the neighborhood. They also have an existing fence, which in the front yard, which ranges from about 3.5 to 4.5 feet in height that they're replacing. So there's some consistency, I guess, of how the property looks from the front in terms of the fencing that's present today. Oftentimes we ask for vegetation to be installed between the sidewalk or street and the fence to sort of soften a 6-foot fence. And I think their fence is 2 foot plus from the existing pavement. So there's an opportunity for the commission to ask for something like that. I will locate, it's a 3 feet 4 inches from the front property line. So there's an opportunity if the commission feels it's necessary to make design review findings for the fence to request that they add some plantings between the fence and the
So that
property
3
line.
foot 4 inches is from the property line?
3 feet 4 inches, correct?
Their proposes to set it back 3
Yes,
feet 4 inches? Okay.
Correct.
That's my last question. So I guess we're ready. If there's no other questions for staff, we're ready for the applicant to make their presentation.
This is my first day on crutches, so I'm trying to be a little careful, although it doesn't look like it. Here we go. Thanks. Hello. Good evening. My name is Stacy Ford, and I'm the architect for the Irelands. The Irelands bought 478 Montecito about 3.5 years ago as first-time home buyers. They cleared all the dying trees and shrubs from around the house, creating an open backyard space for their dog and socializing with friends. The existing 1,100 square foot house is a very crowded 3-bedroom with 1 tiny bath. The tiny kitchen includes the house heating, water heater, and washer and dryer. The house throughout has only 8-foot ceilings, and it also has a very wide 3.5-foot overhang around the entire house. As Tracy said, that was a very good presentation, Tracy. So I think you're going to hear a lot of repeat. But this parcel is zoned for 20,000, and this lot is under half of that. It also has an eastern downslope area that is clearly undevelopable due to required the 10-foot setbacks and a steep slope. So the 9685 really gets trimmed another couple of thousand. Each parcel in the Montecito Avenue neighbors seems to be mostly unique in shape of parcel and house design style. This residence is unique here for the original 8-foot plus of excavation on this parcel, rather than located on top or very close to the existing grade, as most neighbors along this side of Montecito Avenue are. As you drive down it, you will see almost everybody else is on top, usually on the southern part of their property so that they get the long views. This is probably the only property on that side that has no long views. It only looks onto the fence to the south, to the north. The original location of this residence has the carport set into the required 10-foot side setback. By requesting a variance to keep this location, we can meet the requirement of one garage parking space without the extra cost of building a new one and relocating the driveway, along with potentially more excavation on a site that clearly has had a lot of excavation. With this variance, we propose reusing the walls. And if you look at A2, you will see that on the existing floor plan, you can see how small it is. But on the new floor plan, it does show that we are trying to keep as many of the walls as possible. We do pretty well on the north side. On the south side, there will need to be some foundational changes. But with this variance, we're reusing the walls as shown in plans, and we will have 4x4s supporting a new 9-foot ceiling and the second story. It's a typical construction that is done when you keep the house. You just raise it up and support, and then you block in and fill in. The entire roof needs to be removed as it is 2x8 construction, and the new floor will be 12-inch TJIs or equal nominal lumber. Although this solution is more labor, and that's why almost every time one of these projects starts and you drive by and it's gone one day, is because the contractors decide that's a better solution. The contractors that will be bidding on this job will understand that they're doing this the hard way. They're going to keep walls. Although this solution is more labor, it is better from a sustainable point of view by using fewer new materials in the construction and less discarded into landfill. The one area that, as I hear you talking about foundation, yes, a 2-story foundation is different than a 1-story foundation. The southern wall that is shown, that is a 2-story wall, will have upgrades to the foundation. The foundation itself has been checked by a structural engineer, and we found, surprisingly, that the house is level. Which was a little bit of a surprise because clearly it is not the same type of construction that is used today, which is everything is quite oversized and overstructured. The Ireland's design goals from the first was they wanted to have a front entry. As you guys may have noticed, the front door to this house is at the carport. You walk through the carport, past the kitchen and the bathroom, and go to the front door. They did not like that. So they wanted a new front entry, a gable roof shape, more light distributed throughout the house after living in a house with 3.5-foot overhangs, better ventilation with higher open ceilings. The ventilation, as you notice, a lot of these fixed windows, there's almost no ventilation in the house. And they wanted to maintain their backyard, and they wanted to keep it open and green. So after clearing out the overgrown vegetation, we began discussing the house addition planning. The first house plan options were all 1-story, but it was determined that extending the house on the lower level would take over almost all the existing backyard. They have terraces, their dog loves to run around back there, and a smaller backyard wasn't a good solution. With this in mind, the chosen option was a small second floor along with a dining room lower addition. By including the new second level, they could keep much of the open and green rear yard. They could have sunny windows and cross ventilation, and they could gain one longer view from the playroom office upstairs, the same view that almost every other neighbor, as far as we can tell, does enjoy on this street. At the same time, we wanted the least impact for the neighbors. So this second story is pushed west toward Montecito Avenue as far as we could do it and still get a little bit of a setback on the front. Having done a lot of these for decades, I know that almost all planning departments do want some setbacks on the front. I've seen very few of them approved without a setback in the elevation. So we pushed it to Montecito Avenue, also specifically so the northern 476 neighbor would be least affected by shading and sound on their south side. Like many of the other houses, the house is actually over their side setback as well. But it just seems like this neighborhood just was a little bit of the country for Corte Madera, perhaps. During the design process, we turned the ridge 90 degrees. We originally had it going parallel to the street, but we did that so that this neighbor, for less shade impact on their south side when we worked with them prior to the submittal. That is Peter and Tori, and they are not here. I'm sure they're listening on Zoom, though. The other thing we really specifically did is we wanted to tuck the second story behind the existing buckeye and oak trees. There are these two fairly good-sized trees in the front setback. And when you're coming from the upper elevation, you almost miss the second story of this house because it is screened behind the trees. We also wanted to put that as far to the west as we can for the upper neighbors. The upper neighbors so that they could keep their long views to Corte Madera and Greenbrae to the north. In this county, having a long view it's really, I think, what everybody considers just almost nirvana because there's a lot of nice long views. This view will be really nice in the evening and at night because you just see all the lights dotted in the hills. So the second story is within their view when they look out for their long view, but it is not directly in front of any of their social rooms. Each of the two direct neighbors both have a garage as their first structure on Montecito. And so really, we end up putting our garage almost in line with those two garages. The roof and the house colors are dark intentionally to blend the siding and the roof into the trees beyond. If I was to say one thing about Corte Madera is they need to cut down their trees, but hey, that's just me. But this whole area is extremely vegetated, almost excessively so. Design-wise, I'd actually reduced the eaves to 20 inches, and I would say there is no standard for an eave depth, but I believe 24 is the one used the most. It's certainly the one that I've used the most, but I had decided after Nikki and Spencer, started talking to everybody, I could tell this is a really tight-knit neighborhood. It's pretty small. And so anything that we do, I felt like we should try and really look out for these neighbors. Most of my work is in West Marin. And the views that people have are often 180 degrees or 360 degrees of ocean. And I find that nobody, no matter how long they've lived there, wants a house built in front of them. And so the way I look at it is if the people can sit in their house and not be confronted by this huge, by lots of windows or a house in their view, that is a good thing because they are looking out onto a sea of roofs. That's when I look out of my house in Greenbrae, I can probably see 40 houses, but I just see the top of them. And I'd go, the top of this roof for the upper neighbors will be almost the same as the one at, who's Kirk's house? Is that 482? The house above, our roof is going to be the same color basically as theirs, a super dark gray or a black. So I do feel like the roof itself and the siding from afar will not be obvious. It will not be popping out. Like I can see some of the other houses in Corte Madera that have been approved by you being light stucco colors. And even from their house, we can see a lot of them through the trees. So I know that using a darker color will help not have the house pop out. Additionally, for the 480 Upper Montecito neighbor, the dining room addition floor is 12 feet below their floor level. So they, first of all, they look out past a fence, but it feels to me like they will not be able to see any of the one-story structures beyond. Because I do think it's important for everybody above to try and keep those long views. Everybody loves them. There are no windows on the north side of this addition for sound privacy with the 476 neighbor. They frequently use their south-facing terrace for socializing at certain times of the year. And rather than hearing people speak from one side, we thought it would be better to kind of create a better wall for them. Because I know they really regard their, they love their property and everything about it. So the front yard has a new central landscape stairs aligning with the front entry. There's limited new planting along the front fence to soften the wood fence. The reason we did not put a lot of plants out there is the plants are already there. And what people tend to do is they just park on top of them. Because they tend, when people are working in that neighborhood, I have seen over the years that there's a lot of work trucks that park there during the day. So we decided as long as they were going to park there, why don't we just make it so that it's a better parking spot? Then when they leave in the evening, if either of these two guys has somebody to visit, they have a parking spot out front, or they can juggle cars because I believe they will have an electric vehicle that they do need to charge. So that was just to soften the wood fence, and I think it is shown as just that climbing fig. So what it would basically do is create a green wall instead of a wood wall. The new rear terrace is in the same location as the previous patio, leaving the green space open and sunny and their vegetable gardens intact. That does remind me of one thing. I believe you were asking questions about the drainage. C1 shows a drainage report. I've already had several conversations with, actually with several engineers after reading the Mo report. They do give you, when you go through, I'm not sure, Valerie, if you understand, but we do get a report from the engineering company that's, I believe, contracted outside for you guys. It's up in Santa Rosa. What they say is until you hit 2,500, you don't have to do any heroic drainage. None of the green roofs, none of the swales, none of the what are they called? You know, bioswale planters. So what we have done, there's a current drainage system that goes on the south side of the house, and it goes to that sort of pie shaped that goes down the hill. Sorry, sir, I have to hold on here. No, I'm just like, I'm so I've been laying in bed and sitting for 2 months, so, or being in hospital, so I'm kind of glad to be standing. So what is going to happen here is just the regular drainage. What I've shown is 2 dissipators. So that's just going to be a big hole that has some gravel in it. I've tried to keep them away from any of the big slopes going down. So it's going to be near their terrace that they've already got in the back. And what will happen, it just slows the water down. We haven't really been seeing too much clay around there. Seems like the hills have been holding. That really steep cut on the south is holding. So, yeah, but I'm a little bit cautious when I'm being the drainage engineer. So I'm going to keep everything on the top of the site, not going to sit it off to the, plus I don't want to put it anywhere near the neighbors. I think typically we keep it 10 feet away from them. But yeah, it's just a big gravel in the ground. and what it does. Plus, they do have all their plants on the back. We're going to probably try and cook up some ways to collect water in some of the drain spouts and then deliver it to their gardens, because I think they'll have a lot of opportunities to collect some water. Thank you.
I think we can take questions from the commissioners at this point. Valerie, is the presentation complete now?
Yes?
Yeah, okay. Just want to make sure that your presentation is complete.
Yes.
Valerie, we'll start with you.
All right. Well, I need to gather my thoughts. But thank you so much for the beautiful and very eloquent presentation.
Thank you.
It makes a lot of questions that I previously had clear. So again, thank you very much. And I want to start with complimenting the project. I think it looks great in terms of the size as well as the material palette. And choices of orientation and, turning the ridge towards the front of the street. I think it was all great decision. It looks great. Just a couple of the questions for the clarification specifically. I think more so like, would you be open to kind of meet the neighbors halfway? It sounds from your presentation that you work through each neighbor and you truly care about what the building how it would impact their views specifically. So at 476-1, I believe specifically the window that is in the proposed playroom currently facing, if I believe correctly, it's facing the neighbor's courtyard. That is pretty intimate in setting. So my concern there is that they will be able to see the lights from that particular area into their garden, which would kind of bring down the evening, hours slightly different than what they're experiencing right now. But I don't think you can change much there just due to the nature of the building. But I was wondering if you would be able to raise your window sill height to 4 feet above the finished floor.
Yes, we actually have talked about this, and I've tried to explain to them that this is something that the commission will decide, because if we don't show it on our drawings, that means it's not a done deal. We are open to making those two windows be only 3 feet tall and have a 4-foot sill height, as Peter has requested. But the only thing I'd like to do is, we had only one window facing to the east. What I'd like to do is go ahead and keep the pair of windows, and then put another pair over here. So it'll make more sense inside the room. So then any of that corner would have a 4-foot sill height, so that people who are in the house can look out. But for Peter and Tori, that seems to be the number that they think would be a good sill height. We've also, when we met with them, we did tell them that there would be blinds and everything in these windows. And I do know that sometimes when you have that, you just know if somebody's out there, you just put the blinds up, or you keep it dark. Generally, when they were socializing, it seemed like it was more in the afternoons. It wasn't really nighttime that they were using that area. But yeah, it's a valid point, and that's why we think that we can compromise on that.
And when you mentioned the second window, that would be the bathroom?
No,
it would be around the corner.
It would be on the other side of the room, the east side. So it'd be the same pair of windows looking out. It would be 3 feet high by 5 foot wide. And there are 2 casements so that they can get plenty of air in. So on either side, they would never be looking down onto the house below.
Understood. All right. And then addressing a separate comment for the 482. And I think the clarification was there in terms of the projection of the eaves from the wall, not necessarily the height of the ridge. But before that, I was wondering if there is a possibility for you guys to consider to lower your ridge height. So currently it's at 11'6". And if we could lower it to 10'6" by a foot, it slightly will change the steepness of the slope, but it still would keep your ceiling pretty high in that area, but it might help the neighbor of 482 to, have a little bit lower ridge there, and therefore maybe projection of the eaves will not matter as much.
I believe, Matt is
Here.
here. So he's gonna give us a lot more information about that. But the way I think about it is that, and I'm certainly willing to hear what he has to say, but it is a long way from his house. And honestly, if I thought that it would make a difference to him, we could pull it's really the rake that would have to come back. But I just don't think anybody's going to be able to really discern that 150 feet away. Especially because the fascia is going to be very dark and the siding is going to be dark and the shadow is going to be dark. So I tend to think it's all just going to blur together as just something dark in the distance. But Matt will give us a little bit more information. He initially did want he basically wanted the ridge to turn. And we're not at the point where we can put it back. And I do actually think that having the ridge as it goes out to the street, it kind of gently, if you look at A 0.1 and you see that, it just kind of helps it slide down the hill. It's just a really nice, whereas before when it was straight, it was just kind of a blockage. So I felt like once we turned it, I felt like that was really the answer for just the elevation on the street looking very home-like and fitting in.
Yeah, I think not necessarily, we're not going to be removing obviously the ridge, right? Like I think by lowering it slightly, it won't really change much of the slope. But maybe the study would actually be helpful to understand where it would go. Maybe like only 6 inches would be even enough.
Well, the one thing that will happen if you talk about lowering a roof, there's impacts to headers on windows, sills, and everything. And some of them are located in areas where if the roof slope came down, like even the big walls on the first level, if that slope comes down, all of a sudden, some of our header heights are compromised at the edge of the slope. Even if it comes down 2 inches, if it comes down 4 feet in, if we take it down even a little bit, we could be basically looking at redesign, maybe smaller doors, things like that. And they really did want these big doors. Lowering the ridge, the house is already only 23'2". And that's a very modest height for a 2-story house.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll discuss it further as well. And then I guess one of the last questions that I had, I believe that the current light fixture specification, even though it is facing downwards, or shining the light downwards, it's not conforming due to the lens being exposed. So I think you would have to change the light to something that has.
And I have tried, and in some of the locations, what I've tried to do is put them in soffits. So it's not going to be that light. It will be just a recessed light. Because
Okay.
I agree. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Andrew.
Yeah, thank you for that presentation. I can appreciate the design iterations that came before this. I think that you made some.
Yeah.
I think you made some nice changes to accommodate neighbor concerns. So I think that's great. Just so I understand, back to the playroom window, I appreciate for your neighbors, Peter next door and his wife, that you're willing to move that windowsill height up. To 4 feet. Help me understand, were you gonna push that window, the north-facing window into the backyard, or is it gonna stay in its same?
No, it was going to stay in the same place. I have 7 foot head heights on the upper level, actually on the lower level too, except for the big doors. So a regular size window will fit, a 3-footer will fit right in there in 4 feet. So when people are sitting, our height is about at 3'6".
Right.
So they'll be protected from groups that are sitting in that room. They won't be seeing people.
Understood. And then you were gonna have the window that faces the backyard match that one in width?
The same 2 windows on both wall and then center it in so that then the playroom kind of makes sense. It's just going to have a sectional in the corner
Yeah.
and a place for a TV.
And that window facing the backyard, you can
Right.
expand that with that.
East facing window.
Got it.
Yeah.
And that's okay relative to the roof height.
Yeah.
Below it.
It'll
It can
just
fit.
barely squeak in. Yeah.
No, I
I
think
checked
that-
it.
I think that's a good idea. And Valerie, I hear your point about the possibility of lowering the ridge height. Architecturally speaking, I think at a 412 roof pitch, I wouldn't want to go much lower than that. And I can appreciate the ceiling height you have at the perimeter walls, which I'm assuming is about 8 feet. Is that correct?
It's 8 feet everywhere except for the master bedroom. Because we're raising that part of it, we're raising that front part of it to 9 feet.
Got it.
And mostly it was so that we could also get the heating in. Because the 8-foot ceiling is just so tough to fit anything in. Yeah,
Understood.
I mean, I've had lots of problems retrofit. The second story, it starts from an 8-foot plate as well.
That's what I assumed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Except on the south side, it's springing from a 610.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, what I did was, since I wanted the ridge in the middle, right at above the entry.
Right.
So we pulled the height down to a 610 inside the rooms, and that's why there's dormers there.
Oh, got it. For the 2 bedrooms that
It was
fit.
for a little bit of relief, a little bit of fun on the roof,
Understood. I guess my comments are all architectural. I have a suggestion for you. It's not going to be any kind of condition, but to me, it would be nice to have a window in the front of the building on the second floor where the stairs are.
It's interesting you say that. Okay. I'm not against that. And I have no idea why I didn't put one, although there is some pretty significant skylights there. So it's the north, it always seems like it's going to be dark that way, but okay. Do you want to give any limits of how big that window could be?
Oh, I don't think, no, I think
Okay.
playing with that elevation and looking
Okay.
at different size windows, but I think it would,
Okay,
think
it
it
won't
would-
be huge. How about that?
no, yeah,
It won't be over 10 feet.
no, agreed there.
Okay.
But I think you have it set up nicely because everything, your ridge line is centered on the front door. And I think it would be nice from the exterior as well as on the inside. I think it would
That's
be
a good
nice to
point.
look at. So-
Okay.
Yes, there you
Okay.
go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that leaves you and me, Margaret. Go ahead.
I was pretty much agreeing with everything that's gone on, except that I in general appreciate very much, because I didn't realize before, the reason for making it so monochromatic. And it's very good reasoning. I hadn't thought about that, but it seems to be really a smart idea. But I was going to ask about the front view, second story, and I agree about putting a window in there or having, somehow there doesn't seem to be a relationship between the 2 windows.
Okay.
I understand probably they work from the inside, but looking at the front, it doesn't work, and everything else seems to be lining up except those 2 windows. So I was going to ask, had you considered putting a window there for a lot for appearance sake, but it's always nice to have more windows anyway.
Okay.
I had a question about the fence that's in front. From the illustration, it seems to just sort of stop. And I'm assuming that arbor lines up with the front door.
Yeah, the renderer took the side fence off and the gate off. The gate is going to have some kind of detailing that kind of repeats at the front entry. Actually, they've already sent me one, but there's also a fence that goes down along the side so that it encloses, the whole yard needs to be enclosed for a certain dog.
You can
who
see
would
that
like
on
to go to the
A1.
neighbors.
The fence along what side are you?
As you pull down the driveway on the right, there will be a fence coming down there.
Margaret, I don't mean to interrupt, but if you look at sheet A1, you can see the fence next to the little car illustration and the driveway going up the front walkway.
And the pavers that are put down in front of the garage, it looks like it extends outside the fence line and goes up the hill. Is that your plan?
Yes, that is the area that everybody parks their truck in during the day. And the plants that are there just so we decided why not extend the pavers up there and just people park there because they just tend to park on that side. So it just seems like it was inevitable anyway. So we pulled it a little bit back. But yeah, they're done with their plantings as they've already done.
And so you're thinking that people will use that as a parking spot rather
During the
than a
day, of
sidewalk?
course. They do anyway. And then what happens is they block, is it 482 above? 480, they have a hard time getting out of their driveway when people park there. They can't see. So I thought, well, why not just pull it back so that then when they pull out, they can actually see. They mentioned it as a concern, the upper neighbor.
And just to reiterate, you're willing to accommodate the request by 476 and consider what's going to be clarified to us about the property above for.
Right,
78.
Let's hear what Matt says,
Okay.
and then we can respond to that.
Okay. I think the resident at 476 to the north also requested in written form to the commission that the fence between your property and theirs be constructed before construction starts. Could you speak to that?
Well, it's not a great way to do it, but yeah, I think they have an agreement and they've already talked about it. So that, I think they just have to pick a fence at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess we'll hear from the owner at 482, but the request that's in the staff report that I guess the east side eave be reduced. Can you comment on that from an architectural point of view, from the client's point of view?
Well, eaves are there for a reason, to protect the side of the building. It's not to throw shade or something always. So it's a rake back there. It is not an eave because the ridge runs through. So like I said, I just don't, like on this house, I have limited, on the north side, I've limited the eaves to 6 inches for Peter and them, because I think the property line is only 4.5 feet away. And I always feel like you keep the 3 foot shouldn't have a lot of stuff in it, shouldn't have a lot of stuff overhead or anything. So those have an abbreviated eave, but they're an actual eave rather than a rake. I guess I would like to hear what Matt has to say, but again, I feel like if you have to stand in your house to look at the problem, it's not really a problem. If you can sit in your house and you don't see a roof, I think people are normally sitting in a room. But I haven't been up to his house. I have seen the photo, and willing to listen.
Okay. The last question has to do with the 6-foot fence in the front yard setback. And I will say I'm not generally in favor of 6-foot fences in the front yard. I think as the code says, they really prefer the front yard being open to the street, create more friendly neighborhood. The 4-foot fence you can see over, but you can of course always put planting on the inside. And also, I hear your argument about the pavers in that area, but in fact, if you would put planting in front of the fence, once it's established, and if you put in something that's vertical and you put it in 4 feet, no one is going to park on top of it. So I would, first of all, be in favor of 4-foot fence, but if it's going to be 6 feet, then I would want to see planting there rather than pavers. There's plenty of pavement in town. There's not enough green, so that would be my perspective on it. You want to comment on that or just?
I believe they wanted the 6-foot fence as privacy, for privacy. And everybody else seems to have 6-foot fences. I mean, I guess not everybody does, but I believe that I've seen mostly 6-foot.
Well, can you imagine the street if everybody had a 6-foot fence?
Oh, no, I agree with you. I'm in agreement, but I do know that dogs can jump over a 4-foot fence easily.
Well, even the
All
current
the time.
fence has a mesh above.
Oh, so
So-
you're saying a solid, but then something a little bit
Thing transparent and
semi-open.
upper 2 feet
Like the
would,
lattice one that's there, or something that would.
yeah.
So we could put something up in there like pickets like that and grow it up. I think we could be open to that. Like 5 feet and then put that. I mean, 4 is short.
I liked the design of this specific 6-foot fence.
I can't hear.
Oh, they just really wanted a 6-foot fence
This
there.
was Part of the.
That was,
Yeah, I think, if someone's primary open space is facing the street, then I think there's a rationale relative to privacy and so forth. But this side yard is really not currently or in the plans designed. The primary space is in the back on the east side. So again, I don't see the rationale relative to privacy. Well, it may be,
Sure.
it may
Sure.
become a condition of approval,
Here.
depending on how the other commissioners feel.
It's a loud enough voice, I think.
Okay, that takes care of our questions. I guess the next thing would be any person in the room who would like to speak. You have 3 minutes. Oh, you want to speak? You need a mic. And just identify yourself.
Of course. Some thoughts here. All right. Well, thank you, Tracy and Stacy, for that great presentation. My name is Spencer. And this is my wife, Nikki. And we're grateful for the opportunity to be here and share a little bit about our vision for our home at 478 Montecito. Nikki and I both grew up in Marin and are proud graduates of Redwood High School. We're lucky enough to still have our families nearby, and after living in San Francisco for a number of years, we want to move back to Marin. We moved to this neighborhood 3.5 years ago, and 478 has already been a place of some big milestones in our life. We got a dog, got married, and are beginning to grow a family. We bought this house excited for the opportunity to make it ours. Anyone familiar with this house knows that that was not a small undertaking. Over the past few years, we've invested a lot of energy, thought, care, and plenty of weekends into making this our long-term home. One of our proudest accomplishments have been creating a backyard that's become the center of our home, a space where we've built lasting memories with friends and family, and where we hope to celebrate more milestones as our family grows. From the start of this remodel process, we made a point to communicate openly with our neighbors. We wanted to be transparent with our plans, hear any concerns, and make sure what we're doing fits naturally within this neighborhood. Those conversations have been really meaningful. We've met new neighbors, heard stories about their own remodels from the past years, and learned how thoughtful updates have helped families stay and thrive here. That's exactly what we're hoping to do. Our design reflects the same respect for the neighborhood's character while giving us the flexibility to adapt the home for our family's needs in the years ahead. And we started this process 3.5 years ago when we first moved in this home and thought about what we wanted to do here. And through clearing the backyard, developing a house that we could be in for a long term, we've come up with these plans, and they're a reflection of years and years of work. And we're genuinely excited to keep building our life here, not just as homeowners, but as long-term neighbors who care deeply about this community. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so is that the final presentation of the applicant?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we can hear from the gentleman from 482.
I'm Matt, excuse me, and I'm from 482. I want to say that they've been great neighbors. We are supportive of what they want to do for the most part. Of course, you brought up the ridge line. I will make a clarification. Sitting down in one of the windows in my great room, I do see the ridge above the home above me at 480, but I'm okay with that. But as it keeps pushing towards the east, then it becomes more and more of a visual impairment for us. And the original poles went up and it was like, okay, that's doable. And then for whatever reason, the poles moved further east. I guess they weren't exactly where they were supposed to be. So when they moved further east, I was like, okay. And I digested it. But then I asked Spencer, is that the wall? Or is there going to be an eave that bumps out? Because for me, that just means more roof ridge line going along this view comments that Stacy's saying. And so, I mean, I'm fine with the ridge being higher. I hope the variance is approved because I don't think anything else would be much better, and it'd probably be worse for the neighbors if it like really pushes for 480 and 482 further east. That would be not good. So I've looked at a lot of eaves, including my own, and I'm just don't think from an architectural standpoint, or there's no drainage on the back end of the house. You can't really see it because they're going to bump out. You'd have to probably go to the back far corner of the yard to see any difference in the eave. And right now, if you go over Montecito, up on the hip of Montecito, there's a project occurring right now, and they literally have the fascia board right on the wall. There's zero eave. I don't think that's a good design, but I'm requesting like 4 to 6 inches of an eave similar to what I have on my house just to minimize any more push to the east. And I just don't think that would architecturally do anything, and hopefully would accommodate what Spencer and Nikki overall want to accomplish. And I don't think it weather-wise makes a huge significance one way or the other, whether it's 12 or 4 or 6, but it's a small ask, I believe, from us in support of everything else that they want to do. I think they've been very considerate and they're great neighbors. Hopefully they think the same of us, and we're very excited about their expanding family. And I think the colors of the home and everything will land very well otherwise. I guess I have one other question. I never really, and maybe I should have come in because what we get in the mail is not nearly as detailed as everything else that I saw today, but the windows on the east side and skylights. So back to like looking out at the darkness of the night and seeing the Greenbrae Hills with the sparkling home lights from there. Are there skylights on the south side of the roof? Okay, I'm hoping, well, all right. And then the east side windows, they are what they are, but I guess I'm just requesting that the eave be reduced as much as to 4 to 6 inches if possible. Or something.
Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there, Claire, is anybody online?
Yeah, there's one hand raised online. Peter, I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself. Oh, wait 1 second. I don't want to see your video. You should be able to unmute yourself, Peter.
Can you hear me at all?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. All right. It's great these guys are before you, and we support their project. Per the comments by the commissioners and so forth, we've requested that on that north-facing window, they sort of raise the sill to the bottom of the top 2 lights, or in other words, take 1 row of lights out of that window. That's really what we would like there, just to be clear about what we'd like for the window. I think if they were going to do the same to the east-facing windows, that would be great as well, but not as important as the north-facing window. I think that when it comes to the fence, we have a fence in front of our house at 6 foot that was probably built in the early 80s, from what I can tell. And there's another couple of fences on the street that are 6 foot. And I understand we couldn't survive very well without having significant planting or a 6 foot fence along Montecito. It's a necessity. Montecito is kind of a highway during the day, and to Stacy's point, there are so many work trucks that are parking everywhere on the street every day, and so that will get a significant parking load in front of their house. So I leave it up to, in my thought, those guys to resolve that parking out front. But it's important that space is occupied almost every day with a vehicle that sticks out into the road, and to the point that, as you say, the neighbors above can't get in and out of their driveway very safely. So that's my witness of what happens on the street with regard to that parking. And we're in support of these guys to be able to build what they want to build there. We're very happy to have them, including their crazy dog. So we love them all. So I hope that you guys can find your way to condition this appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. Claire, is anybody else?
No other hands are raised online. Let me check the email really quick, just to make sure. And we've not received any other email comments either.
Okay, thank you. The applicant has a chance here to, you might say, rebuttal, or just to make any additional comments to what you've heard, either from the commission or from the public. Just a minute. Go ahead.
There's a picture. Yes, there's a picture of the story poles that was taken by the applicant, the neighbor's house.
Can you show?
It's
Okay. Do you want to add something?
We've been chatting and we've decided, why don't we reduce that rake overhang to 12 inches? Kind of splits it in the middle. 2 feet is usually what I would have. It's shown as 1'8". Matt will be getting 8 inches off of it. So it's a little bit. We will pull it back. And I think it's a good compromise. It
Okay.
still will protect the building. It's just, I always try to make buildings last as long as possible.
Thank you for that response.
Could we just seek clarification on the light adjustment per Peter's comments?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
It sounded like Peter's comments asked for something to be removed in the ceiling lights and
I
the
didn't
upstairs.
hear that. What I heard was that he said if we add a window on the east side, that the sill height be the same as the one on the north side.
Okay.
Was,
He mentioned the ceiling lights in the playroom because there's a thought that that light can come down through the window into his courtyard. Okay. A window shade. Oh, got it.
Yeah, so this came up in previous conversations with Peter and Tori. So again, the plans that were submitted reflect, rounds of iteration. Can everyone hear me? Is this on? Yeah. So plans that were submitted reflected multiple rounds of iterations. And we would, as discussed, we would be happy to, include shades that would, limit light. Again, I think it goes both ways. You don't necessarily want to look up at someone at the same time that they're looking down on you. I think as far as light changes goes, it's something that we would just want to study and understand a little bit better before committing to something. But again, we've been through this process to find compromise, and that's ultimately what we want to do.
Sounds good. Is the ceiling going to be vaulted in the playroom? Got it. So maybe if there are recessed lights, maybe they're angled so that they're not, yeah.
I
Okay. Thank you.
have just a follow-up question, but the shades are manual, correct? They will not be automatic shades that would
I'm not sure if we know that at this point.
Right. Well, I'm just asking because, we can say shades, but shades could be up and not going down unless they are automatically recessive to the lights. Just clarification. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we know whether we're going to have manual or automatic.
The catch is that we're approaching a time where we really don't know how much this house is going to cost to build. It's very much a moving target right now. And mechanical shades are wonderful and beautiful, but they're the last thing installed. So they would be the first thing that would probably be cut. So, but yeah, I think that we're feeling pretty sensitive to light coming out of that room, and they're just going to work with them. They have a good enough relationship with them. They see them all the time, and even when I go over there, they're very friendly. So I don't anticipate a problem with this, but we will have to be very sensitive to it.
okay. If there's no other comments, then that closes the hearing. Oh,
I appreciate their willingness to move to 12 inches on the eave. So I'm completely satisfied. And as far as I say, break ground.
okay, thank you. That closes the public hearing. And we're going to now move to comments from the commission before we deliberate. So I'm going to start with Margaret.
The words of wisdom were lost. I said, I think everyone should be commended. I think it's great. I think that in situations where the neighborhood is close and people can talk to each other, I think that's the best thing that can happen for everyone. And everyone seems willing to do it. The only problem that I have with the project is the variance. And in 1B on the variance, and I'm willing to compromise on it, but I just want it known, I have a problem with that. Think that the part where it deprives the property of privileges enjoyed by other properties in the vicinity, I don't know that a garage could be classified like that. But as I said, I think that the other unusual situation here, the size of the lot, the fact that it's been there for a very, very long time, since the beginning of time. I think it kind of like looking at the totality of the circumstances, I think that I could overlook it, but I do have a problem with that.
Okay. Andrew?
Yeah, I agree with I agree with Margaret that there's been a great spirit of working together and compromise. And I realize that that's been happening for a few years. So I really appreciate that. And it seems like any of the outstanding issues are pretty minor. Appreciate the change in the eave or rake depth. I was trying to figure out the extent to which the gentleman at 482 can see that, because I think there's an upslope between the properties, but that's been resolved. So I think that's all good. I appreciated Peter's comment about the height of the fence, because I initially thought that what Dan said was very reasonable and would help the street frontage if there was a 4-foot tall solid fence and then 2 feet of lattice or whatever that might be. I still prefer that, but I also understand, looking at the plan, that your master bedroom, or primary bedroom, I should say, is on the first floor with windows facing the street. So I get that you want some privacy there, even if you're looking out the windows more that face uphill. So I think that's all I have to say. I think that we should approve it by a few conditions, but that's up to you.
Yeah. Valerie?
Yeah, same. I think I don't have specific problem with the variances because the site is very small to begin with. I think the applicant is trying to find the better use of it, still have a great backyard in the back and not to lose much space. And the size of the house is very fair to the neighborhood. So I feel like having an enclosed garage for a young family who's probably expanding is extremely important nowadays. So I do not have an issue of accepting with the variances as they've been applied to. I believe we have talked about a couple of the conditions. So my specific condition would be just changing the light fixture. We talked about it. You seem to be okay with that. And the windowsill height to address the homeowner of 476. That would be just my two.
Okay. Guess it's my turn. I do want to address the findings. I basically agree with the staff report on the findings relative to the general plan. I think, I think there are not significant views. This is an urban neighborhood, and I don't think that there are any significant view impacts. I think the privacy issue, I think we've addressed somewhat particularly relative to the window on the north side. And we can address any of those other issues in any conditions. There's very little shading impact. Mostly it's at the end of the day and the winter solstice, and it's not on their, on the primary space of the house to the north. You know, I think you've done a very good job of trying not only to respond to the neighbors' concerns, but also I think in designing it as you've done in responding to those concerns. Relative to the variance, you know, I think generally I don't support a lot of variances, but I think since this is a non-conforming use, by agreeing to the variance as part of the conditions, it's acknowledging that this house exists and that it's not practical to tear the house down and start over. And so essentially, this is sort of a way of making what's there responsive by the things you've added are within the current zoning. So that I think is important. I think, you know, I sort of disagree with Margaret. It is a small lot, small relative to that neighbor. There's only 2 lots this size in the whole neighborhood that are that small. And so I think that that is a sort of hardship relative to others. So I can support both findings relative to the variance. I guess, so I'm supportive of the project. I think we do have some conditions we want to add. And I guess there's 4 or 5 of them. I guess I would ask, how do we want to articulate those? I've made some notes.
Stab at it if that is helpful.
Pardon?
I can take a stab at it if that's helpful. To read
Okay,
what I
why
heard.
don't you? Yeah.
So I have the first condition that to add from the commissioners is that the sill height on the playroom window on the upper story of the north elevation be 48 inches. That the fence,
Wait a minute, I think you need to add that it would be okay to add a similar window and sill height on the east side,
okay,
because that's not in the drawing, so we,
the addition of a window on the east side to match the one on the north elevation. Did you want to include, I guess you don't need a condition if there's a window on the front, staff would evaluate that as part of the building permit application.
I would add that as a condition, and I think, I guess the question is, are we comfortable leaving the size of that window, location size to staff? Well, I think the question is that it's not in the drawings we're approving. And so if they add the window, then it's not really being approved. So we at least would have to say that we would accept a window on the,
Is it possible that we could, it seemed like there was a general reception to that idea. Is it possible that we can look at what is designed via email?
I don't know. I think we need to take action tonight.
Oh, it has to be specified.
Are you having concern with the height or the width of a new window on the front? Because
I have no
No,
concern.
I think we just, if the commission agrees that a window in the front would be good, we should at least give the applicant the approval to do that with staff discretion. Otherwise, we've approved plans that don't have that window.
That's good.
I just don't, I agree with Margaret. I don't think it has to be a condition of approval.
normally if an applicant were to make changes to the approved window location, sizes or sill heights, we would look at that and evaluate whether it was consistent with the conditions of approval and how consistent it was with what was approved, including what's discussed at the meeting tonight. And we would make a call if a permanent amendment would be necessary and at what level. A permanent amendment could be done administratively, meaning that staff determines that it's consistent with what was approved, or it could be done at the staff level, meaning we send public notice and remake any findings that are necessary with the change, or at the planning commission level, if the change was significant enough, the permanent amendment would come before the planning commission. So most of the time, a modest sized window on the front elevation facing the street would be something that staff would review and approve.
So I think we'd be okay just saying that the staff could approve that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be a condition.
Okay, so right now we have the sill height 48 inches on the window on the upper story of the north elevation. And the addition of a similar size window on the east elevation would be permitted. There was discussion of the front yard fence having a solid part on the lower portion and lattice on the
Can I
top portion.
Make a comment about that. The fence issue.
Go ahead.
Given what
Is your
Peter,
mic on?
given what Peter said about the parking issue there, and how difficult, how people park right up against there, and they would be parking on that, the pavers even, I think a solid fence is kind of necessary, given that people park trucks and cars and stuff right up to the fence line.
Well, I think that, so it's sort of two questions. One is, if you had a 6-foot fence, I'd want to see planting in front of the fence instead of pavers. I think by putting pavers there, you're encouraging people to park there, which, as I understand from Peter, makes it more difficult for the neighbor to the south to get out of their driveway. So if you put plants there, one, it softens the fence, and two, it will keep people from parking there.
That's,
Could I just make?
might not be realistic. I think if people want to park there and they're used to parking there, I think the plants might be in trouble.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like if there is no parking spots on that street, people still will be parking. They will be just off the side. They will be on the way to the street. But perhaps we can meet in the ground. Like I don't think we should lower the fence to the 4 feet, but perhaps to how Stacy originally suggested, to do a 5 foot and maybe like a foot of lattice to just do the planting there. I don't have an issue with the 6 foot fence. Like if that's not a condition, I'm okay with that. But if that's the problem for the other commissioners, I think 5 foot and the 1 foot of lattice would be a compromise.
I guess I'd ask you, Andrew, relative to the planting, let's say, assume the fence is 6 feet, a planting issue or not?
I kind of think people are going to park where they want to park, and my fear would be that someone just parks on top of the plants if there's a buffer there. What I think would look nice is if if there's a plant that can grow up along the front of the fence without, it only takes a very narrow gap of soil in which to plant it.
Actually, I think the plan calls for vines in the
Yeah.
front of the fence.
Yeah,
It does anyway. Okay.
It does. It's on L1. There's 3 climbing fig vines proposed. It has a mature height and width of 6 foot by 1 foot.
So will there be wires or something that
Can the mic, we need the mic.
Yeah, 476 actually has that vine on the lower level of their little retaining wall. It's very lovely. It just becomes green.
I think that's great. I think.
Yeah, and you actually will, once you see it, you'll start seeing it everywhere. It has almost nothing out from the wood, but it covers it all in this lovely pattern of growing.
Okay.
So it's very pretty.
Thank you.
I
Okay, so we're going to leave the fence issue and the paving issue as is.
Okay.
Sorry, that's just a comment here to add. I have another design suggestion that doesn't have to, obviously it's not a condition, but we can, you guys can also look at the impervious pavements, because that can also help with having some of the vegetation in between the pavers and help with water runoffs and other things. And it also, where people park actually by the fence, it will help tremendously as well. So you could consider that as a part of the project. Impervious pavement, yeah. Yes, yes. Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Go ahead, Tracy.
This would be the third condition to reduce the rake edge on the east elevation, upper story of the east elevation to 12 inches. And then fourth is to change the exterior light fixtures so that the lens is not exposed.
Anything else? Any of the commissioners have anything else to add? Okay, then I'm going to ask for a motion. You have to read the,
Oh. I've never made a motion.
yeah,
Microphone.
you just need to read.
Page 1. Yeah. Yeah. Attachment 1.
You can go ahead and make the motion. Do it next time.
All right. I move the motion to, I would have to probably Tracy to repeat all of the conditions because there are quite few there. But I move the motion in the matter of design review application PL 250032 for a 610 square foot second story addition and a 204 square foot first story addition and variance application PL 25-0033 to change the first story's flat roof to a pitched roof and reconstruct the existing attachment carport as a fully enclosed garage at 478 Montecito Avenue with the conditions of approval.
Number one, that the sill height of the playroom window on the upper story of the north elevation be 48 inches. Number two, that it is permissible to add a similarly sized window with a similarly sized sill height to the east elevation to match the one on the north. Three, to reduce the rake edge on the upper story of the east elevation to 12 inches. And four, to change the exterior light fixtures so that the lens is not exposed.
Tracy, that rake is for the first floor addition, right? Just to be clear.
Or the second.
Second.
Oh, it's for the second. Oh, I thought we were talking about the one on the dining room. That's why I misunderstood. Okay. Good. Fine. Thank you.
Any seconds?
There a second? Okay, we have a
Roll call? Yep. Commissioner Bandel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rogers,
Yes.
Commissioner Beshoyer,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Kenny.
yes. Okay, that closes the that closes 478 Montecito Drive application approved. Thank you for showing up and all your efforts.
Do you have an estimated timeline on when it might be completed?
This.
Yeah, in the back, in the back, so it's uneven, yeah.
By when?
Thank you.
Good luck.
All right. Do we have a report from any of the commissioners?
I have the town council report.
Okay, can you move your mic a little closer?
It's on.
Yeah.
So this is the report from the town council meeting, which was last week. The first thing on the agenda was the interview of a Parks and Recreation Commission, new commission member, Daniel Smack. And it was a very extensive interview in front of the commission. I was surprised. He said that his emphasis is on measurable goals, and he sees an issue as understanding a problem, getting feedback, taking an action, and then the measurement of whether they've reached the goal or not. And he was approved and is now a new member of the Parks and Rec Commission. Then there was a presentation of the environmentally preferable purchasing policy, EPPP, and by Phoebe Golden, who is the Climate Action and Adaptation Coordinator. And this is mainly an administrative action for internal guidance in staff purchasing of things that are needed. Purchases should be made to reduce the environmental impact and support the climate goals of the town. Then there was business items, and this was kind of a confusing thing, but it involved the introduction of new ordinances, which requires first the repeal of the previous ordinance, and then the adaptation of the new ordinance. There were three. And the commission, the town council will adopt the 2025 California Building Standards Code and local amendments, which was passed. They adopted the 2025 California Fire Code and the 2024 International Fire Code with amendments that support local findings, and that was passed. So first they go through repealing the old one, the previous one, and then the new one. And then they adopted the 2025 edition of the California Wildland Urban Interface Code and the 2024 International Wildlife Urban Interface Code, which was passed. So this is all new stuff, and they review it every so often. The report of the town manager said that they are evaluating the food truck program. There is some delay in the building of the Tamalpais overpass. The ADU fair was a success. The lease for the location of the new intergenerational center is still in negotiation. And they want recommendations for next year's work plan. And that has to go to the council, and they want anybody who has a recommendation to get it to the council for the work plan for next year as soon as possible. The problem with that is they didn't give they didn't say how to do it. So I'm wondering if Amy knows how to do that.
Yes, so every winter, we actually have an item on the planning commission agenda to talk about the work plan. So we'll talk about accomplishments for the year and then staff recommendations for what suggestions would be on next year's work plan, and then getting input from you all. And so I always carry that forward to a strategic planning session with the council where they formally decide on what's on the staff work plan.
Okay, so we should wait and not
Yes.
jump at that, because last year we were too late.
No, we were not.
We weren't.
No, absolutely not. But this year we have it tentatively on your November calendar, but if we don't have any actual development items, then it'll be on the December calendar. But the strategic planning session isn't until late January. This year, I think it was late February. So yeah, you haven't missed anything, and you provided great input last time. And
I'm going to keep doing it.
yes, so I can remind you of the back and forth if you need it.
Okay. And that was the town council.
Amy Ackerman, town attorney. I just want to clarify the building and fire codes. Every 3 years, the State Buildings Commission develops new codes for the state. And so the localities can add can make certain changes to the building and fire codes, provided they are they're not less rigorous than the state codes. And those were just introduced. They adopting a code by reference is odd. I don't know why this should be the case, but it is that the public hearing actually occurs in the second reading rather than the first. So that was the first hearing. So they were introduced and they'll be adopted at October, that our next meeting.
So what they passed was the fact that they were going to put it as an amendment and to be voted on in the future.
They just like ordinances require 2 readings, so that it was introduced, and then it will have the public hearing at the second reading when the council will approve.
And if I may follow up on that, the other impactful component of that item is the reach codes. So you may remember that the reach codes right now, there's a threshold of 750 square feet. So if there's an addition and it reaches 750 square feet, then there's a set of options for energy efficiency that the homeowner would have to choose to be able to reach a certain threshold of energy efficiency. So as part of the item that was introduced last week, that threshold is proposed to be at 500 square feet. I sent an email about that because it's not something that came before your commission, but Phoebe did bring this forward when the 750 threshold was adopted. So this went really fast because the state requirements are very truncated and the amount of time that you have to be able to adopt something. But that 500 square foot threshold was introduced at the council. So that hearing will be on the 21st to formalize that.
And when will it be effective? For the
January
project?
1st.
January 1st. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Staff report?
Yes, I think Margaret did a great job summarizing the council meeting, which included a few things, including the ADU tour, which was a big success. So in Corte Madera, we did host the first ADU fair for the county. And so that included a very robust fair. We had tables out on the patio. We had a full house inside listening to presentations. And then after, there was a tour of ADUs throughout the county, but the majority were in Corte Madera. So that was quite a success. We had almost 200 people here for that at very coming and going. And so we were happy to be the kickoff for that annual event that we hope will continue. The other thing I wanted to note, I sent an email about this, but the Council on Infill Builders released a report looking at the housing production in Marin. And this, it included a convening of developers a few months back. And so the developers basically got to identify what their hurdles were collectively. And through that exercise, it was a full day event. They found about 10 recommendations. And then this report really digs into those recommendations and presents them so local governments can understand what needs to happen to better facilitate housing. So the release event was last week, and the report, I did email it to you, and I'm hoping to get hard copies for you as well. I just wanted to alert you to that. And then the last bit of my report is some really great news that the item that you heard, I think it's been about a month ago now, at 400 Oakdale. We've been working with the applicant and the neighbor to look to get a resolution, and they did reach an agreement to be able to move forward. So this will take some
Interesting.
time because they will need to revise plans, and that does include the purchase of some property and a lot line adjustment, which will be a condition of approval, but they will revise the plans, revise story polls, and then that will be coming back to you when they're ready.
Great.
Yeah. So a lot of that's Martha's hard work on working with those individuals. And so that means your next meeting on October 28th will just have one item, but it is a large item. It's going to be a study session for the preliminary application at 56 Madera, which is the assisted living and memory care facility. So that will be on October. And then just to note, the meetings in November and December are special dates because your normal meetings fall on holidays. So I'll email those dates to you as well to make sure they're on your calendars. And then we will have most likely items on both November and December date. And that concludes my report.
So the 400 Oakdale will come back to us at a later date?
Yes.
Okay. Good. If there's nothing else, then we can adjourn the meeting.